So, well, thank you all for coming, first of all. And I wanted to start by talking about John McCain. So, John McCain was at a campaign rally recently in January in Texas. And the mother of a son with autism asked him what he thought about this link that's been talked about between autism and between autism and vaccines that are given to newborns, immunization vaccines. And people have talked about this link. A number of celebrities have pushed this idea that that there's a preservative in vaccines that was used sort of between the 1930s and the 1990s that contained mercury, and that mercury causes a number of symptoms that look like autism, and that some people thought this was responsible for the rise in the rates of autism that we've seen in recent years. So some studies in the late 1990s seem to suggest that there might be a link. But since 2000, there have been more than a dozen studies that actually disprove this link. Very sort of rigorous studies. One that was published last year in the New England Journal of Medicine that looked at this and found that there was, looked at more than 1,000 children and found there was kind of definitively no link according to this study. And public health officials have warned about these ideas, about these theories, because they're worried that people won't vaccinate their children, and there might be public health consequences because of that. This year we've seen a rise, for example, in measles infections, especially among people who haven't vaccinated their children. We saw measles infections among low-income people, but now it's high-income people. So John McCain was asked about these links, and he said that actually he thinks that there's strong evidence that indicates that it has to do with the vaccines, that the rise in autism cases has to do with vaccines, and he thinks that the science proves this. So a few weeks later, Barack Obama was at a campaign rally in Pennsylvania, and someone in the audience asked him a similar question about what he thought about this link between vaccines and autism. And he said that he thought the science was inconclusive, that it really didn't prove it either way, and that if he were president, he would fund more research into this because he thought there should be sort of more definitive answers on this. Even though, as I said, the scientists think that it is conclusive already, that there really doesn't need to be much more research, and they think that there is no link. Hillary Clinton was similarly asked about this and she gave a less specific answer, but she didn't say either way what she thought about the science, but she thought that there should be more research also into this question. So if you're looking for an example of what I call the post-fact society, I think this is a pretty, you really can't do better than this one. So scientists have reached a conclusion here that there's no link between vaccines and autism. And politicians from both sides, the Republicans and Democrats, are supporting this claim because, as a way to sort of pander to people who believe this. And I'm not saying that people cynically believe this. I think that people actually believe this. They have many parents with children with autism, are looking for a cause, and they genuinely believe that vaccines might be the cause. The politicians might be sort of cynically using this belief to gain support. So, and I argue that this is a symptom of a larger problem, a society, I say, that's become unmoored from objective facts. And we see this often. We see this not only in the vaccine case. There are lots of people who believe that HIV doesn't cause AIDS. And there are lots of scientists you can go to who tell you that their science proves, that their research proves that there's no link between HIV and AIDS. And there are lots of people who similarly believe that humans aren't causing the planet to get warmer, and that we're not responsible for that. And you can find scientists who say that this is not the case. And because you can find scientists who say that this is not the case, there are people who put their stock into these theories. And for a number of theories, you can find and it's always been the case that you found disagreement on various scientific claims. But I argue that more people are believing these things now things that don't have a factual basis because of technology. I think that we have true enough is about the psychology behind why we're apt to believe things that aren't true but that feel true. And one of the reasons that this has proliferated recently is because of digital technology and its effect on how we perceive things. There's been this shift over the last few decades between the old world, the mass media world, where we got our news from three sources, basically three networks on TV. You had ABC, NBC, CBS, and you had one big newspaper. And now you have lots of different sources. Now you can get now we live in what I call the niche media world, where you can get your news from blogs of all sorts and emails and podcasts, and there's lots and lots of radio stations these days, many more than there were in the past. And this shift, I say, has led to, it amplifies certain psychological tendencies we have to search for and indulge in information that accords with our beliefs and to avoid information that we don't like. So I want to clarify a few things first. This is not sort of an anti-internet book because I work on the internet and I blog. I write a blog and I grew up with the internet and I like it a lot. But I think the internet is a big deal, and I think that digital technology is a big deal in changing society in ways that are profound, and I think it's revolutionary. And in any revolution, you can't really have completely all positive effects. And there are disadvantages to this revolution. I think one of them is that it amplifies these tendencies that I talk about. So the main tendency, the main psychological phenomenon I explore here is called selective exposure. And this was something that two researchers in the late 1960s proved sort of most definitively. What they did, they were Timothy Brock and Joseph Balloon, and they put people in a room and they played for them a variety of audio messages, sort of something like radio broadcasts, but there was something funny about these broadcasts. They were marred by static, so you couldn't, if you just heard it, you couldn't really hear it very very clearly. But there was a button mounted in the room, and the researchers told these people that if they wanted to get a kind of a closer listen to what was going on, they could press the button, and they would get a few seconds of clear audio. So the button was what the researchers were interested in. They wanted to see, what people would want to get a closer listen to, what people would avoid, and they also asked these people a number of questions about their lifestyle and their habits and their politics. So one of the messages had to do with the link between smoking and cancer, and the audio broadcast said that there was a link that smoking caused cancer. So what the researchers found was that smokers and non-smokers reacted very differently to these messages. The smokers, when they heard this story about the link between smoking and cancer, they preferred to ignore the button. They didn't press the button to get a closer listen because they didn't really want to hear about how their habit was dangerous. The non-smokers pressed the button. They really wanted to hear about the link between smoking and cancer and the dangers of smoking. It didn't really, they weren't put out by that information because they weren't smokers. On the other hand, when the researchers played a message that was kind of the opposite of that message, a message that said that there really is no link between smoking and cancer, it was the smokers and non-smokers reacted completely differently. The non-smokers ignored that message.